And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and today we are joined by the lovely Miss Lori Johnson from Hancock Whitney Bank. Good morning, ma'am. Give us your, for those who are listening only, no video, give us your name and what you do.
Hey, good morning. My name is Lori Johnson. I am the financial center manager in Denham Springs, the branch on Florida Boulevard of Hancock Whitney. I've been with the company for going on 26 years this year.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That's called job security. And so what got you into banking?
Right out of high school, I was presented the opportunity to go work for Hancock. Well, it was Whitney Bank at the time.
Sure.
And it seemed like a great opportunity, so I jumped on it, and I started off as a part-time teller, and I stayed part-time roughly the summer, and then after that, they hired me full-time. I was going to sit out my first year of college, and once I got there, I had so many growth opportunities. I was just in a fortunate position to be able to stay, and they've sent me through different programs over the years to get different banking certifications, but
Sure.
I got very lucky. I had gotten hired on in 95, and again before the end of 95, I was already working for them full time. So
you knew. It was love at first sight with the industry, huh?
It was definitely being at the right place at the right time, and having some good people to help me get my foot in the door. I was
Sure.
very fortunate with that.
And you know, you've really obviously you like to work there. You believe in it because you've been there for 2.5 decades now. So and it's that belief, I think, that brought you here today, because you know, I reached out to you and I said, hey, you know, I haven't done a podcast with you yet. I'd really like to do one. And you said, okay, I want to talk about fraud and a lot of this banking fraud that's going on, especially during COVID. You know, there are a lot of people that are hurting, they get clever, and they tend to go after the elderly, as you and I have discussed. So, you know, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing in the marketplace. And, you know, we can get into some of the deeper details on maybe what kind of scams people are running, but, you know, it's kind of heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is extremely heartbreaking. One scenario I can give you was there was a woman, her husband had recently passed away, and she was being scammed because they found her name in an obituary and knew she was getting life insurance.
Right.
And they're coming after her, and they use scare tactics, and they really play on the empathy of these people and lead them to believe they're going to save the world by sending them this money. And we're trained to look for that at the bank. You know, when people come in and they make large cash withdrawals or they want to wire funds, you know, there's questions that we're supposed to ask them to deter this from happening.
Sure.
And it's sad because once we discover this has happened, you know, they're always, they feel dumb. And I tell them,
Right.
don't feel dumb. You're the victim here. You know, it's nothing that you did wrong. And now our job is to protect them and to make it stop. But they truly believe these stories, whether it's someone overseas that needs to get home, or whether they have a medical issue and they need this money for some kind of procedure. They just play on the sympathy of these people, and it's just really, really sad to see.
Right. And, you know, you think about that immediate reaction is, oh, I feel really dumb, you know, and is that part of the training, is trying to express to them, no, there's nothing dumb about you. I mean, these people have refined this process. They are clever. You know, they find ways to do this. You know, is that part of the training, is working them through it?
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, at the end of the day, they're heartbroken. Number one, what they did, the money they lost, their trust is broken because they trusted these people to send them the money. So just when you give that initial blow that everything they've been doing is not legit and they've been scammed, you know, you certainly want to try to build them up from there as best you can, because they're already just, their ego is shattered, their heart is shattered.
Sure. And it's important to note as well, I think, that it's not the end of the world. There are recovery processes, and sometimes you don't get everything back, but you can at least get something back. you don't want to give up.
Absolutely not. And my thing is, I want to make an awareness out there for, we have a responsibility. I need to make sure I'm checking on my parents and my grandparents. And I want everyone to do that for these people, because that would help eliminate a lot of this as well. If there is someone else on the account with that person, we could reach out to that other person as well, because sometimes they just don't believe they're being scammed. They're
Sure.
naive and they keep continuously sending the money. So I've even contacted the Council on Aging and asked her, after COVID restrictions are lifted and they're meeting again, if we can come in and have a presentation,
Sure.
just to make these people aware, because it's just, you work all your life for this money and someone just takes it like that. And it's really heartbreaking to see.
Oh, absolutely. And you brought something up that was important, and that is some of the younger generations who are more aware of what's going on online and aware of the protections. What are some of the things that, I want to take this from a two-prong approach, because you don't want to, force your parents or your grandparents into a situation where they're going to resent you. Obviously, you love them, you care about them. What are some of the things that you could possibly say to your parents or grandparents who might be older, as to, maybe it's a good idea. I don't like, do they have to be a signee on the account, or can they just be signed up for awareness? Like, hey, your mom or your grandmom is doing this. Maybe you need to ask a couple of questions at home, because she has told us that she's not interested in what we have to say.
Right. Unfortunately, I mean, unless you're a joint owner on the account, we could
Okay.
obviously, unless there's some stipulation, if there's a power of attorney, maybe.
Okay.
But and it's not even to be on your parent or grandparent's account to be nosy, and they don't even have to put you on the account. It's just make sure we speak to them about what to look for to not be scammed.
Sure.
If someone's asking them to send money, they need to go have a conversation with someone about that, whether it's their child, their banker, whoever. Let's uncover this, make sure this is legit, because there are some things out there that people do donate to, and I don't think everything is fraudulent, if
Right.
you want to give to some of the charities. But when it's too good to be true, McHugh, it's probably not. And another thing is, if you didn't play the lottery, you probably didn't win it.
Right. That is an important distinction. So, I mean, that's a couple of good things right there, is kind of, remember where you've been, remember maybe who you've donated to or who was soliciting you. What are some good questions or things that a grandchild or child can present to their parents or grandparents to say, hey, be on the lookout for this?
Right. So they will send things on letterhead. Number one, if it's not spelled correctly, they misspell things. This is coming from overseas.
Sure.
They're trying their best to spell American words,
sure.
and they're not doing it correctly. Their punctuation and pronunciation is completely nothing legit. And again, if it's money going overseas, that's a huge red flag.
Right.
If they send you a check and tell you to deposit that check and then keep some of the money, but send them some back, that's a huge red flag. That's not happening. People aren't going to give you money to do them that favor. So what essentially happens is this person deposits the check, sends the money off, and by the time the check comes back counterfeit, that cash money is gone and that other person is out the money.
Right.
We see that a lot.
So a lot of times it's, looking for things that to a lot of people might seem suspicious, but in a world where the internet is infinitesimal and continues to grow, you have to remember it's easier to be found, and especially, but it's also easier to understand, okay, this person found me. They're not really interested in my best interest, and they're not interested in anybody else's best interest. So from a, I guess you can say, protective standpoint, what, when you're thinking about, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of going in circles here because I'm trying to think of the exact right word to put it, because I don't want to sound, like the elderly are stupid, because they're not. A lot of them are not dumb. They might be empathetic. They might be, they might play to a certain aspect. And one of the things I always like to bring up is that it's very interesting for those especially those elder generations, especially people who are currently are older than 60, because there's a guy who gives a speech around the country, and he talks about the fact that for these folks, the the washing machine was a 60-year invention before people even started to innovate. TV was 50 years, radio 80. So for them, when you start thinking, oh, here's a new social media, here's a new website to go to, here's a new phone that can do, that can turn your house into a transformer. It's a little bit. You kind of have to have some empathy for them because it's a wild world out there for them. So, what are some of the things in your experience? And I think having talked through that, I've come up with the right question. What are some of the things we told them how to be aware, but what are some of the things that a child or a grandchild can say to try to invoke some trust there, to say, like, look, I'm not telling you this because I think you're stupid. I'm telling you this because it's a crazy world out there and there's a lot of people coming after you, and I have a lot more experience in this realm than you do.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. It goes back to what you said. They're not stupid by any means. They're trustworthy.
Right.
They grew up in a different time than we did, where you had the whole handshake, your word was your word, and they believe when people tell them, look, you've won this money, and so going back to the question, it's just, like I said, if you didn't play the lottery, you didn't win it. Look at what these people are asking. Where are they asking you to send this money? What is this money being used for? Can you Google this company and find out information?
Sure.
Do some background homework on it. And if you don't understand or don't have access to the computer, that's when, reach out to someone else and let someone help you with that. Because I know people want to make donations to charities and want to help people out. And it doesn't mean it's all bad, but you certainly don't want to see someone get scammed either.
Absolutely. So can you, does the bank provide any kind of fraud literature or a fraud hotline, or is it just, if you feel like you've been defrauded, call us?
Well, I mean, there's not necessarily literature because there's so much out there that we could put out there. I mean, we have things in our disclosures that would touch on it a little bit, but for the most part, once you've recognized fraud, we're backed by Visa, so we can dispute some of this stuff depending on how it was done. I mean, if you've come in and taken $10,000 out of your account and then it's been sent, that might be a little harder to be able to dispute.
Sure.
But I mean, the bank has a great security department and things that we've put in place where sometimes we're able to notice that. We can look at red flags on someone's account and it trends, and we can go back and realize they're being frauded. And that's when we can call that client and question the activity in the account and, try to put some protective measures up so no more money is taken.
Sure. And like you said, I appreciate what you said. Y'all are backed by Visa. And I think, but one of the other things you said is a lot of times it very much depends on how the money was taken. So that's why preventative measures are so important.
Absolutely.
So what your branch's phone number?
225-664-1307.
Great. And, of course, if you feel like, you have been defrauded or someone is trying to defraud you, it's always good to report it to the bank, because then y'all, once you find a new sort of fraud stream, you report that to the authorities, correct?
Absolutely. So what they would do is, obviously, if there's money missing, they're going to need to go file a police report for sure. But then we get our security department involved, and they work with the client and with the police at that point to try to recover anything that they can. And of course, we take our own measures if the account's been compromised, that maybe we need to open a new account and, change PIN numbers, whatever we can do. We certainly want to reset everything and protect the client.
Sure, absolutely.
On our end.
So anything, this was going to be a two-part interview. We were going to talk a little bit about fraud first. Anything you'd like to say to sort of wrap that up?
Just, be aware. I just want to bring awareness to everyone. Again, if someone's asking you to send them money, really check into it, look it up online. You know, if it's a business, contact the Better Business Bureau. Just do your homework before you're out that money, because sometimes it may not be able to be recovered.
Sure. So important to try prevention as opposed to waiting until it happens and then reacting.
Correct.
So pivoting into the second part, I want to talk a little bit about what you do at Hancock Whitney, which is you are a lender. You lend money. And, you know, one of the things I wanted to bring attention mostly to business owners is that you'd be surprised what you can get a loan for. And so I want you, you know, I know I can't ask you to give us information on all of your programs, but if you could kind of give a few things for business owners and a few things for homeowners, and then I'm going to ask you maybe for some examples.
Okay. So a business owner, first and foremost, an operating line of credit. We clearly saw what happened in this past year with PPP, and depending on, or COVID, should I say, PPP was available, but depending on what type of business you had, I mean, if you were a restaurant owner, you were out of work for a while.
Right.
You know, and again, luckily they had PPP to fall back on, but until that came into place, if you had some kind of line of credit, something that could float you until you were able to reopen your doors or get that PPP loan, that was just a great example for last year. But any other year, even if it's a normal year, you know, even if you have outstanding accounts receivables, this working line of credit can help you operate and stay afloat until you get your money on the back end, because those could take 60 to 90 days sometimes, depending on where your invoice. And even now that there's electronic payments, they still wait to the last minute to pay. You know that, with the newspaper.
I do. And I mean, you know, even with smaller clients, I understand. You know, everybody's got some cash flow issues right now. People are trying to extend, you know, almost like personal credit with other businesses, trying to pay their bills when they can.
Right.
And I get that. So outside of a line of credit, what else do y'all offer for businesses?
So, I mean, of course, we have the business term loans from anything from equipment to their building. We have a great, we call it our owner-occupied real estate program, where normally on a commercial building loan, it will balloon every 5 years.
Okay.
We have a straight 15-year amortization loan, which is really good. That's very big for a business owner. You can do a 20-year amortization with a 15-year and then balloon that last little bit if it makes sense for you to do it. But rates are so low right now. You know, we're finding a lot of those term outs. Or even if you're looking to buy a building, I had a client who was renting a place, and she was going to look to rent somewhere else. And I was like, look, you really need to look at buying with this product. And that's what she was able to do. So now she owns her own place, or will own it rightfully in 15 years, but she's not wasting her money on rent anymore. This is something for her.
Sure.
And I think it's a great product.
And that's a great example. You know, it's almost like a personal mortgage in a way. This business owner suddenly gets to say, you know what, I want this building. I'm going to move into owning my own real estate in terms of a business. So any other products that you'd like to bring up?
So again, for the businesses, like I said, we term loans, lines of credit. There's so many different products out there. Whether we do it secured or unsecured, rates are just at an all-time low. On the personal side, I definitely recommend our home equity line of credit. If you own your own home and you have the equity, it's a great way to pull out to do some debt consolidation. I've seen people pull out the home equity lines of credit to buy vehicles. You know, you can do whatever you want with it, and it's a great thing to have. But that goes back again, just having something there for an emergency. You need some type of line of credit, credit card, something to fall back on if you have any kind of an emergency. Just be disciplined with it, and, you know, it wouldn't be an issue, but we recommend those all the time.
Right. And, you know, maybe your AC goes out. Here in South Louisiana, that's an emergency.
That's definitely an emergency.
Right. So, you know, it's always good to have that backup. You don't necessarily have to use it, you know, but it's something that will help you in a pinch. I imagine y'all offer standard mortgages as well.
Absolutely. We have our mortgage lenders, and we have regular standard mortgages. I don't handle those personally. I'll
Sure.
do more of the home equities and the second mortgages.
I got you. So let's talk real briefly before I ask you about some examples. Going back to the business side, when you're talking about either a line of credit or a 15 or 20-year amortization, what are some of the things that a business owner can expect to have to deal with going through that process to apply for that line?
To apply for it, so obviously, we would need a personal financial statement on each guarantor, and then their tax returns for the last 2 to 3 years, depending how long they've been open. Kind of those change. I generally just say give me 3 years so I don't have to go back.
Sure.
But and then it goes through our underwriting process. They take all that information just like they would and underwrite it for each guarantor in the business.
So, give me an example of a business owner that came to you looking for a line of credit that had, came back to you maybe 6 months later, maybe a year later, and said, thank you. This was huge for me. Do you have a story that goes along with those?
Yeah. So this was a little bit different. We had a client that he owned his own building, and we were trying to do that Okra product and do a refinance for him. And at the time, there was some issues with some debt to income and some credit things that we were unable to do it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we put a plan in place and we worked with that client. It took we started in January. Finally, in December, we were able to close. And not only were we able to close and consolidate, but we put him on a 15-year payout, and we saved him $600 a month by doing some consolidation.
Wow.
And that was huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, when you're talking about an example like that, wouldn't it behoove business owners who either have debt or are thinking about some long-term plans, would it behoove them to give you a call?
Absolutely. We could take a look at their debt and see if there's some way we can restructure it. I mean, any little penny you put more in your pocket at the end of the month is obviously, better. And there's rates, again, are just so low right now that we can do things like that. And sometimes people just don't realize, they think, especially like credit card debt, they think they're in over their head in credit card debt, but there's so many different ways to restructure that where you're paying half of what you're paying now, and then there's light at the end of the tunnel because you're going to pay that off.
Right. And that's a good thing to bring up. That credit card could work for business owners with credit cards or individuals with credit cards as well.
Absolutely.
So y'all will help individuals, whether they're business owners or just regular. I don't want to say that there's a difference between a person and a business owner, but you get my meaning. If there's a business owner with a credit card or just a person on the street with a credit card, you can help them restructure that debt.
Absolutely. The personal side, and we can even do it on the business side too, pulling the equity out of the home. That's the most times that we do the home equity is generally for some kind of debt consolidation.
Right.
I've even seen people put like their kids' tuition. They're trying to pay that off, so they'll throw that in, things like that. Just because the rate's so low right now.
Sure, and again, there you have it. I mean, the rates are low. COVID kind of put housing market is hot, but again, the lending market hot too because of low rates. And for individuals trying to consolidate debt or pay it off, that's a good thing too. For business owners, when somebody comes to you with an idea or wanting to borrow against something, what are some of the warnings you give them, if any?
So, well, it really depends. Like, are you talking about like if they're coming in to do like a startup business, or
it could be a startup, or it could be somebody saying, hey, I'm 4 months behind on my electric payment, and I've kind of talked them off, but now they're coming for me, and they're going to come turn off my electric. I need money. Is there something you say to them like, it may not be a good idea to finance your electric payment. Let's finance something else so you can put together capital for your electric bill.
Absolutely. So, yeah, if they're struggling, you want to look at the whole picture. My job is to give them financial advice, so I need to know all that, and if they're open enough to share that with me, and then I need to look at it and, like you just said, where else can we restructure this?
Sure.
And hopefully that they haven't gotten to the point where it's hurt their credit, so we still, can help them, which again is why I always tell people apply for the line of credit when you think you don't need it, because when you do need it, you may not be able to apply for it.
Sure. If you let that debt, past term and they
Right.
turn it over to collections on you, it may kill your credit and you may not be eligible.
Absolutely.
So, lots of interesting things, more options than you think there in the lending world. Well, first and foremost, if somebody listens to this or watches it and is interested in getting in contact with you, what are the best ways to do that?
Definitely call. My office number is 225-664-1307.
Okay.
I am at 523 Florida Avenue Southwest. That's where I'm located. Or my email is Lori, LORI.Johnson with the number 2 at HancockWhitney.com.
Is there a story behind that email with the number 2 at the end?
There's 2 Lori Johnsons that
Okay.
work for the company, and the other one happens to be in security.
Okay.
So I get some interesting emails.
I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure.
And I'll just send them to her. I'm like, I think this is for you.
Yeah. This is definitely not a lending question.
Yes. This is not what I want to deal with.
Well, ma'am, we do appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for giving us a little rundown on both, what's going on with banking world right now and fraud and with the lending situation. We appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the invite, McHugh. I've enjoyed it and look forward to coming back again soon.
And one more time for the listeners, if you could give your name and what you do.
Yes, Lori Johnson, Financial Center Manager at Hancock Whitney Bank.
And thank you, ma'am. Again, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us for this edition of the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. We like to talk to politicians, business owners. We like to get some lifestyle folks in here, too. We are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays at $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We appreciate you joining us today, and we will check you out next time.